On March 20th, a Muslim family was asked to leave a United Airlines flight after asking about a booster seat for their child. The United employee said it was because of a safety of flight issue. United Airlines said it was because of the booster and how it did not pass safety regulations. Although they said no discrimination was at fault, do we really believe that? This family was told to bring the booster on board, but then supposedly gets kicked off for having it with them. After being removed, the family asked the pilot why, and he responded, "Because it's my decision."
I don't know, you tell us. They didn't tell us anything.
We're going to ask that she step off the aircraft without your permission.
Why is that?
Oh, because of investigation.
Why is that?
You want to talk about it on the,
Now you're coming to tell me to get off the plane. Yes. Why is that? Because it's my decision.
Is it a discriminatory decision, or is it because, what is the reason?
Discrimination is the practice of unfairly treating a person or group of people differently from other people or other groups of people. Discrimination is not something new in the U.S. Since the beginning, there has always been a target race others have been against. After the events of 9/11, Muslims became that new target race. There have been many cases of Muslim families or individuals getting kicked off planes for no reason, and the CAIR is trying to prevent this from continuing. The CAIR is the Council on American-Islamic Relations, and it is trying to stop discrimination like this airplane situation altogether. As I said before, after 9/11, Muslims became a huge target for discriminatory acts. One event that proves this is Abu Ghraib. During the Iraq War in March 2003, shortly after 9/11, the U.S. took over the Abu Ghraib prison. With the help of the CIA, the U.S. military abused and tortured many Arab prisoners. This horrible incident was happening, yet the pictures came back with U.S. soldiers smiling in front of the tortured prisoners. Half the men and women in these prisoners were not even criminals. They were abused and tortured based on their looks and religion. This shows the strong hatred the U.S. had towards Muslims after 9/11, but one thing they have to realize is that not every Muslim is a terrorist. Some have been living in the U.S. since they were born and have no connection to the ISIS and terrorist groups back home. These Muslims in the U.S. are being judged based on their religion. They have done nothing wrong, yet are being punished for the way they look, act, and dress. This is not the only example of U.S. citizens being discriminated against for no reason. After the Pearl Harbor attack in 1941, all Japanese Americans were forced into internment camps in 1942. Although, looking back at this event, we realize how bad it was. At the time, most Americans supported the internment of Japanese Americans. A viper is nothing less a viper where the egg is hatched, so a Japanese American, born of Japanese parents, grows up to be a Japanese, not an American. This was a quote in the Los Angeles Times in 1942. We're charged with wanting to get rid of Japs for selfish reasons. We might as well be honest. We do. It's a question of whether the white man lives on the Pacific coast or a brown man. This was from the Saturday Evening Post in 1942. And then finally, a Jap is a Jap. This was said in the 1943 press conference referring to Japanese Americans of California. As the quote proves, many Americans supported the discrimination and saw nothing wrong with it. This picture is a cartoon created by Dr. Seuss. In the cartoon, it shows many Japanese characters who all look the same. They're grabbing dynamite from the Fifth Column, which is an enemy group within the U.S. This shows that all Americans at the time had put all Japanese citizens and people in the same category, and assumed they were all bad. They discriminated against the whole race. This is just like what they do with Muslim Americans now. Just like Muslims in present-day America, those Japanese Americans are being discriminated against and put in camp for no reason. In the camps, over 62% of Japanese men and women were American citizens. They were born and raised on U.S. soil, just like the family on the United flight. These Americans are being judged on their looks, religion, and previous acts committed by their kind. We can't let this continue to happen, and racial profiling needs to be stopped. With all the security in airports and background checks, there should be no reason to discriminate against race because of safety issues. Racial profiling is a problem in the U.S. Over time, the U.S. has learned to accept different races, but Muslims are the target right now. Americans think ISIS is such a huge threat that it is okay to racially discriminate against others. The U.S. this time has to be quick to realize that racial profiling is horrible, and the U.S. needs to make sure all U.S. citizens, no matter their race or religion, are treated as equals and not discriminated against.